I'm Marcel Honore, and I'm a reporter with the Star-Advertiser. From time to time, I cover the Malama Honua voyage. That's Hokulea's worldwide sail around the world. It's a 3-year endeavor, and I've also had the chance to sail with Hokulea on a couple of its legs around the world so far. The real reason for me going down there, both to serve as a crew member and as a reporter, was really to document this momentous time in the voyage in South Africa. It marks their halfway point in their journey. It's exactly halfway around the world from Hawaii. A lot of this voyaging, there's an element of when you get to where you are, there's a formal protocol where the voyagers get there and they, in their own way, basically ask for permission to come to where they've arrived, to the people that are there. Pretty much everywhere you go, there's some sort of an arrival ceremony. And so this one was, you know, it's been pretty epic everywhere you go, and this was no exception. And this one was pretty cool because you had this champion of human rights that's almost universally acclaimed for his courage and what he did during the apartheid era. To have him sitting there welcoming the canoe was pretty special. We met up with Archbishop Tutu. At one point, right after we got down there, he helped welcome the canoe in a formal arrival ceremony in Cape Town, in this harbor, kind of right in the middle of town. There were a couple hundred people there. You had both Zulu dancers and you had Hawaiian dancers. Again, you have this kind of meshing of cultures, both to welcome the canoe. And it was just a really powerful moment just to have him present there. You know, Tutu's getting a little older, he's 84. So it's pretty remarkable just the time that he donated to the crew, or that he gave to the crew. They got to meet again with Desmond Tutu at the Archbishop's offices in Cape Town, in the middle of Cape Town. And that was a very special moment as well. These kids performed hula on the balcony for him. They also sang a song that the cultural director at Kamehameha Schools had composed in honor of Archbishop Desmond Tutu in Hawaiian and named after him. And this is on a balcony. Everybody's kind of close together, so it was a little more intimate, I'd say, than the bigger arrival ceremony. You could tell it was a big deal for these kids. They really understood the weight of who this person was and kind of the privilege to be dancing in front of them. I mean, it was written all over their faces, a lot of them at least. One of the most memorable moments was when a delegation of Hawaii students and some of the crew members and teachers, this was a delegation from Kamehameha Schools, Halau Kumana Public Charter School, and these are some of the preeminent young hula dancers as well in the world. So we traveled to this place called Mossel Bay, and specifically a spot called Pinnacle Point. And at Pinnacle Point, you find some of the caves that are now known to have the earliest incidents of humans acting the way humans do today.
And what made this place very special was that the surrounding environment was not that heavily impacted, and probably because the coastline was fairly nearby, but was not that heavily impacted by the Ice Age as was much of the rest of Africa. So, as I said before, there were probably about 5 or 6 places in Africa where people could have survived, you know, and this of course being one of them.
And so you have this Hawaiian group that comes to this cave, and they start recounting in Hawaiian traditional Hawaiian creation stories. They start talking about their accounts as a people, as Hawaiians. then they start dancing hula, and they start giving their testimony, basically, as some of the youngest people on the planet, anthropologically, historically speaking, coming back to this central point. And so we can all trace our roots to this sliver of coast on South Africa. One of the things I helped out with when I was down there was the open houses. In a lot of these ports, what Hokulea tries to do is have like these dockside outreaches where people from the community can just come in and tour the canoe. And so we were going to be doing dockside outreach this one morning. We had all these, we had our shifts, of who was going to lead the outreach at what time. And Noah Thompson, who's the president of Polynesian Voyaging Society and captain this leg, he saw the kids from Halau Kumana and Kamehameha standing up by the dock, and he basically said, "No, stop, this is too important. We've got these kids from Hawaii, and they've got to come down here, and they've got to interact with the latest crew, the crew that just did the riskiest, the most dangerous leg." They were only a couple days done. They were pretty tired. You could tell these guys just cannot wait to get home at this point. But Nainoa called the crew on the canoe, and he called the kids on the canoe, and he just had this exchange with them. And he mentions this is so important to these kids from Hawaii, to their education, to have this element. This is something he said, I didn't have this when I was a kid. I didn't know my culture and my heritage and how I was growing up. So they brought these kids down to help with the voyage and with the outreach and kind of the whole cultural exchange. But it was also a good opportunity for them to learn about Hokulea as well. One of the interesting things about visiting Robben Island that I hadn't expected, and I don't know if the other Hokulea folks who were there expected, the tour is actually, because apartheid is still relatively fresh, the end of that, and that whole era is not too far gone. You go to Robben Island to tour the maximum security prison there and see Nelson Mandela's cell. And the tours are given by former political prisoners who were there. This guy, a guy by the name of Tom Moses, showed the crew and the students around. He was there around the same time that Nelson Mandela was there. He served 11 total years.
This prison was built by prisoners, not contractors. Prisoners built this prison.
He showed us Mandela's cell in the middle of the maximum security prison. An interesting thing about Mandela, which as I understand it was distinct from other political prisoners, there's a red pail. And the pail was for him to use the bathroom, and they wouldn't remove it. I mean, after he would use the bathroom, they would keep it in the cell. So he just had to sit there with it. So almost kind of to drive that point home, they still keep this red pail right by his bed.
As I looked into the cell where Nelson Mandela was held for 18 years, I just felt this overwhelming sense of love for a man that I never knew, but I know who loved the world. And I know that he gave up his life, part of his life, because he knew that there was promise in standing up for what we believe in.
That was, Robben Island it's a mind-blowing thing to see. Not just Mandela, but all the folks that were there, and the level of will that it took for Mandela in particular to withstand all those years in isolation like that and in those conditions, based upon what he believed. I mean, it's really a testament to the human spirit. while we were at Cape of Good Hope, the Hawaiian students wanted to do a service project, and they wanted to do a beach cleanup. So that was kind of an interesting place, of all places, to do a beach cleanup. Cape of Good Hope is a very prominent geographical landmark, particularly for sailors and mariners who are coming around the Atlantic and the Indian, and it kind of marks that they've made a safe crossing around these very treacherous parts. So they did a beach cleanup there, pulled a lot of line out of the rocks. It's not really a sandy beach, it's a rocky beach. So you get a lot of fishing line and things like that. And so they were able to get all sorts of trash off the Cape of Good Hope. The fishing line, kind of like with the monk seals over here, where you're finding issues of them ingesting fishing hooks and whatnot. So you find a lot of that actually washed up. Some of it's lodged deep in the rocks. It was kind of a very Indiana Jones moment where you have some of this line that's so embedded in the rocks. When you pull off the rocks, there's like thousands and thousands of little, not crabs, but they're like little bugs, crab-like bugs, just by the thousands. So to get some of the most lodged in line, you really had to kind of, it's like the Indiana Jones with the snakes or the rats or whatever. It's kind of crazy. But it was very worthwhile. They pulled a lot of debris off that beach.